Hey guys, check it out. I'm here today with Ruby, my boa constrictor imperator. She's actually the Nicaraguan dwarf version of the BCI, which is why her colors are like so cool. She's looking amazing today. Look at those peaches. And she's like so like lightly colored. Look at her belly too. She's got like a beautiful peach tone on her belly, and it goes right like to white underneath her chin. But, you know, being a young boa, she is one of my spicier snakes. So she tends to be more defensive. And well, sometimes, I say sometimes, but has frequently struck at me in defense. So that's why I decided to handle her today, because I wanted to talk about the signs that can tell you if your snake is thinking about biting you. So stick around, I'm gonna tell you all about snake bites and how to avoid them. So it's kind of a part of snake keeping, honestly, that sometimes you might get bitten. It's really not that big of a deal unless you have an extremely massive giant snake, which if you're a first-time keeper, you definitely should not have. So it's honestly more startling usually than it is painful and can definitely freak you out. But it's not anything that you can't deal with. There are two main kinds of bites that you're gonna get from a snake. And spoiler alert, neither of them are aggressive, okay? The only reason a snake will bite you is because they are feeling defensive, so scared because they think that you're a predator. She's just like staring at me, so I'm gonna move her a little away from my face. Or because they accidentally mistake you for food, and that's like kind of aggressive because they're going for you as if you were a prey item, but it's like really just an accident on the part of the snake. Check her out here, look at her face. Boas are so cool. I love this girl when she's not trying to bite my face off. I guess I'll talk about feeding response bites first, because these are like pretty easy to identify, really. Basically, when you first reach into a tank, sometimes snakes that have very strong feeding responses will automatically sort of shoot out of their cave or wherever they're hiding and go toward you, like in the same kind of way that they go toward a mouse. And so that's like fairly easy to recognize because they're like really moving toward you with a lot of purpose. So in this case, just like move away. In these cases, I would just leave the snake alone until it's like realized the situation. But if you have a snake that does this frequently, it's not a bad idea to use a snake hook to get your snake out of the tank first. I have received a couple of feeding response bites from my Mexican Black King snake, and I think I've spoken about that in a previous video, but I'll insert a photo so you can see kind of like what that's like. Basically, they will bite onto you, they won't let go, and they'll constrict themselves around whatever part of you they've bitten. And this is like really lets you know that it's a mistaken feeding response, because if they thought you were a predator, they would let go right away and try to escape. Eventually they'll let go. You can try to encourage them to let go by putting some cold water on their face, or like a little bit of like vodka or like mouthwash or something. Just dab that into their mouth, and that really abrasive taste should encourage them to let go. And once they've done that, you can just remove them from you. Make sure that you control the head of the snake so that they don't like try to go for you again, kind of thing. And just give them a little tickle where they're constricted around you, and they should let go. And you can put them back in their enclosure and just handle them on a different day. The other kind of bite that generally accompanies like kind of a lot more dramatics is the defensive bite. And this is actually called a tag because when a snake is truly acting defensively, what they'll do is rear up toward you and strike at you with their mouth wide open, sink their teeth into you just a little bit, and then immediately withdraw. And in this case, they would probably then try to like escape, basically. They're literally like really just trying to frighten you away. This girl is very much likely to do that. Sometimes like without a lot of warning beforehand. Sometimes she'll start hissing a lot before that, and I know she's really upset, and then she'll start like striking out every which way. Once again, like, if you compare my thumb to the side of Okay, that's an example of a tag. So yeah, I went close to her face and she didn't like that. As you can see, there isn't even really a mark on me, but that was a really good example of what can happen. So she's still on edge. She's always a little bit on edge when I handle her, and I went right up close to her face and she was startled by that and tagged me. So what are the warning signs aside from a snake that is like madly hissing at you and acting super agitated? So you can tell that a snake is not super calm and comfortable if you're handling them by kind of the tension in their body, okay? So a semi-arboreal snake like a boa is going to hold on to you kind of no matter what, because they're used to kind of going through the trees sometimes, so they will have a bit of a tighter grip. However, a snake that's really tense, you should actually be able to see and feel their body like suddenly really tensing up or getting really tight around you. So a snake that's relaxed should have a firm grip on you so that they're secure, but not so tight that it's like you can really feel a lot of tension throughout their body. Oh yeah, hey, you can say hi to the camera if you're nice. Another one is also going to be the shape of their neck. So with boas, it's kind of like a little bit harder to tell because they spend a lot of time in what's called an S curve. And I think that's because they're semi-arboreal. It just happens more with these kinds of snakes, but just gonna move her around a little bit so she does it. So right now she's like fairly relaxed because, oh, she just tensed a little bit around my hand. But you can see that her neck is like straight out. So she's like exploring around. But if I were to startle her, I'm actually even just gonna put my hand up here. Do you see how she's moving back a little bit? So now actually you can see that there's a bit of an S shape to her neck, okay? And what she's also doing back up here with the rest of her body is kind of tightening her body around my hand. So she's basically like bracing herself and tensing herself up so that if she did need to lunge forward, she's already basically like spring-loaded to do that. And you'll notice as well, she's focusing on me and she has stopped flicking her tongue, okay? So that's another sign that a snake is stressed out if their tongue flicks are irregular. Like I said, boas like sometimes are just perfectly relaxed but still kind of exploring around using this S shape. So you can really tell that a snake is agitated when they use the S shape and also the rest of their body is tense, or if they kind of gather the rest of their body underneath of them so that they have kind of all that coiled power underneath of them ready to go. But if you ever see this shape in like a colubrid snake or a python, then you know for sure they're getting prepared to bite if they need to. The third thing that I wanted to mention, of course, was the tongue flicking. So a relaxed snake, I'm gonna actually just, this is another technique. If your snake is really focused on you and looking like it might wanna bite you, if you just like move it around so it focuses on something else, that can really help. See, now she's a lot more relaxed. And as you can see, she's flicking her tongue semi-regularly. So any kind of tongue flicking that is not like at just a regular kind of even pattern can be a sign that your snake is agitated and thinking about potentially having to defend itself. So that can mean a snake that is flicking its tongue out for a really long time and it's like waggling out there for a really long time. Or if they're not flicking their tongue out at all and they're like hyper focused on you, which she is again, kind of looking at my face, so I'm just gonna move. Or also like it could be flicking its tongue really, really fast, or sometimes even they'll just stick the tip of their tongue out of their mouth and just leave it there. Any of those kind of irregular pattern of tongue flicks is a sign that your snake is agitated, and if you continue to bug it, it could definitely potentially defend itself. A lot of it comes down to just knowing your snake as well and reading their body language. But you know, tenseness of the body, the snake's neck in an S shape, and how they're flicking their tongue are all really good indications of your snake feeling like they might want to give a defensive bite. And in that case, the best thing to do if you're already handling them is to just, like I'm doing here, try to get their attention away from whatever they're looking at. If they're inside their cage and you're trying to desensitize them, either go in just calmly and confidently with your hands or with a hook and remove them from the cage. Try to kind of go from behind, like here, as opposed to coming right at their face. But once you scoop them up, you'll notice she's thinking about biting my hand, maybe my face, but she's not about to bite the arm that's holding her up, because that's like basically her tree branch. Okay, so once you have a hand under your snake, they're not gonna bite the hand that's supporting them. It's just all the other stuff that's like happening around their face that they're gonna be kind of concerned with. And yeah, and then just hold your snake fairly still. Try not to move too much until you feel their body start to relax and they start to move around a little and explore. And that will kind of slowly sort of calm them down and get them desensitized to you handling them. Try to do this pretty frequently for very short intervals if your snake is particularly defensive, and they should calm down. The only time that I don't handle Ruby when she's acting defensive is actually when she starts to hiss, because as soon as she gets into that like hissing mode, it's like she just won't calm down until you leave her alone. So in that case, handling her wouldn't be helpful because it's just going to stress her out more and cause her to act even more defensively. Okay, so that's a little bit of advice about the kinds of snake bites that you could possibly get, how to recognize it, how to avoid it, and what to do to kind of try to desensitize your snake so they're not constantly trying to bite you. So that was Ruby. I hope you all enjoyed seeing her. There we go. Say bye-bye. How do I get it to focus on her? Bye-bye.